Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Leaders Show, where we talk key issues and news at the intersection of business and technology, with a special focus on automation, AI, and digital transformation in hopes of making you a better digital leader. We're live every other week at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. This week, we're discussing RPA plus AI, getting real for 2024, with Vice President and Global Automation Leader for IBM Consulting, Tom Ivory, plus other headlines for digital leaders from the world of enterprise technology. I'm Dan Goodstein. I head up IRPA AI, the Institute for Robotic Process Automation and Artificial Intelligence. We're a professional association, media, and peer-to-peer research network, providing education, networking, and advice to over 130,000 members globally, all around automation, AI, digital transformation. Check us out at IRPAAI.com. My co-host is Chris Cerdak. He's an author, former advisor for the White House Chief Transformation Office, Automation AI practice lead at EY and Gartner, and has over 30 years experience in digital transformation, AI, and intelligent automation. Chris, Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year. Welcome to 2024.
It's here. I feel like we've been talking about it for a while, but here we are. It's on us, and lots to talk about. CES is going on right now, and more and more announcements about AI. It's going to be definitely the version 2 of the year of AI. I was going to say this is the year of AI, but last year really was, at least from ChatGPT standpoint. But I think this is going to be the year of maybe enterprise AI, Chris.
I think, and AI everywhere. It reminds me of the Simpsons episode back in the 90s where Homer Simpson says, the internet is now on computers. It's everywhere. So
that might be the first Simpsons reference on this show, but I like it. I like it. So, I feel I was hesitant to even mention this headline, but because I feel like this happens every year, but couple economic concerning headlines this week, right? The World Bank came out and says it could be the most sluggish 5 years in the last 3 decades. The International Labor Organization came out and said, although unemployment went down slightly recently, they're expecting it to increase in 2024. Based on weak productivity and skills gap, which we've talked about on this show. What's your sense of all of this negativity?
I think part of a larger trend. I think a lot of these the predictions that we focus on are based upon sort of the general environment that we're operating in. So unfortunately, I think that there may be a more negative tone of what's going on out there. By the same token, I guarantee if you look, you'll find some people saying, buy right now, things have never been better. I've seen some commentary in the crypto space around that. So one thing you can be sure of is whatever the predictions of the future are, some people are predicting good, some bad, and then we'll be looking back 10 years from now at the people that got it right and saying, isn't it remarkable they got it right? So if you have a normal distribution of predictions, someone's going to be right, and a whole lot of people are probably going to be wrong.
I'm a tech analyst, not a financial analyst, but I remember sitting back last year. In fact, it's probably on this show a bunch. When we were doing the show at this point last year. Looking at all the stuff going on in our world, and then watching the news, the financial news and things, and thinking to myself, what are they talking about? Like, they keep saying that this thing's gonna like blow up, but then it never really did. And then second half of the year, I did a little I told you so. Not a lot, Chris, but I did a little I told you so with a few people.
Well, I think one of the things that we all have to accept and acknowledge, and I think we all feel it sort of in our bones, is that the change that we're going through because of technology is accelerating. And that means almost necessarily some people are going to be disrupted from their current jobs, either into doing something entirely different or doing what they do differently. That is the transformation and digital transformation. And so in as much as we're talking about how AI is going to impact roles and change our lives for the good, the disruptive aspect of that change is that, some people aren't going to be doing what they used to be doing, or they'll be doing it differently. So they need to upskill, reskill, de-skill. So the disruption is there. And I think the challenge is it's coming faster than it ever has before. And so once the dislocations take place, people have sort of less time to respond to it. And there's more of a need to do it emphatically.
Yeah. Yeah. So, a couple days into CES, as you might expect, AI is everywhere at the CES conference, especially in the form of Chat GPT and similar types of assistants. It's going to be in your car. It's going to be on every device you own. Who knows? It may end up in your bathroom, your shower, everywhere, Chris, everywhere.
I'm surprised it's not already there in most of those cases.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I think I saw something. Was it Volkswagen is going to start installing ChatGPT in cars?
Yep. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I'm not sure I want it giving me directions on where to go and so forth, but is it really that different from what Waze does for us today? It's going to be interesting to see if it's actually an upgrade or just something new and novel.
Well, I met a guy, and I have to see if we can get him back to the show a few years ago, who was developing emotionally intelligent. They called it AI, and I remember asking him about differentiation and risks and all these things. And one of the use cases he was talking about was a car. And he was talking about having a true assistant that would help you not just with the obvious things like in the car use case or like navigation, but more intelligent types of things. I think that's the idea. That's the theory, right? Is that okay? It can already do stuff that's specific to maybe the tactical side of or executing my drive, but what else can I be doing while I'm in the car that's value add?
If I was an insurance executive, that would scare me to death. What else am I doing in the car that when I'm already not or multitasking 7 ways from what I should be? And I'm not really sure I want an SUV that will cry. But we'll see. If that's what they mean by emotional intelligence, it's sort of in the eye of the beholder, maybe.
How are you feeling today, car? I don't
Yeah,
care. Just get me where
don't
I'm
ask me.
going.
Just get me to the grocery store, please.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in the AI world, let's see. Intel is getting into the AI software business. That's interesting. They're launching a spinoff. While OpenAI has passed 1.6 billion in revenue, Microsoft's adding an AI button to their Windows keyboards on new computers. And meanwhile, the New York Times, amongst other journalists, are filing lawsuits against them. Claiming their systems are doing wide scale copyright infringement.
Yeah, it's a good time to be an attorney that can spell AI. Mean, there's going to be all kinds of work for you to do. Somewhat facetious, but there's going to be a lot of these sorts of battles going on globally. And I think Europe, in many ways, was out of the gate a little before everyone else. But that's just going to make the regulatory landscape for anyone that has a global footprint that much more complex. It was difficult 15 years ago to really understand your regulatory compliance requirements if you were a global entity, and it's only going to become more so going forward, I think.
Yep. So, that's a pretty good segue to our guest for today. I'm really excited because a lot of the conversation around Chat GPT and large language models centers on individuals doing all these crazy things, using it. But one of the things that obviously is relevant to our members and the conversations we have is how this affects the enterprise. What's going to happen in the enterprise market. So let me introduce today's guest. Tom Ivory. He's got 20 plus years industry experience. He's a leading authority in intelligent automation, RPA, machine learning, and he's partner VP and global automation leader for IBM Consulting. He's also a long-term friend. Hi, Tom. Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, Dan. Yes, long-term friend indeed. Good to see you, and Chris as well.
Yes,
Excited to be here.
Thanks for joining. I know we've wanted to have you for a while, and Tom, as I look back, at the beginning of the automation space, the RPA space, I remember a very small group of people that knew how to spell RPA, certainly beyond the vendors that were selling it in the marketplace. Chris was one of them, and you were in that proverbial room as well, Tom. I'm curious, what's your just general take on where we are today versus where we were. It's been about 10 years now, 10 plus years now.
Yeah, I would say 12 actually, and it's been definitely an interesting wild ride, on this RPA journey. I think if they handed out PhDs or masters, in this RPA space, you and I would qualify because we've been entrenched, for so long and seen it grow up. But yeah, I came at it with from an interesting perspective from the outsourcing industry, like a lot of us. And I had the opportunity to have a front row seat when I was at an analyst firm as a COO, HFS, and we authored a report called "Greetings from Robotistan" that we collaborated with Blue Prism. And this really, rattled the cages of the outsourcing industry because it was one of the first times a significant technology would lead to transformation outside of, some of the more traditional ways to transform business process outsourcing, ITO, application development, maintenance, and more. And it was a radical, shift in thinking, on how we can shift from a human performing, a lot of the operations tasks at that time to software and bots, as we started calling them, at that time, taking on that work. And at first, there was a lot of panic, setting in on, people are going to take my jobs, robots are going to take my jobs. But then as we learn more and more about what the technology can do, we came to realize that this was going to be an integrated approach with people and how we could work side by side with technology. And now we're seeing that, in several chapters down the road in this Automation AI book with generative AI last year. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that this will be the year for enterprise AI. And I have a lot of, personal opinions on how automation and generative AI will start to work together this year. So yeah, it's been a good ride with you.
Chris, what questions do you have for Tom? I've got a bunch, but I know you also were kind of early on to this, so I'm wondering if you were aware of that report or if you were exposed to the RPA thing, through one of our events, or kind of how it started for you.
Oh, geez, how it started was, RPA was really a continuation of a lot of process engineering in the 1990s, and then kind of continue from there. But Tom, you had said something that I think has rung true for me all along, and that is the best results with any automation technology is to supplement people rather than replace them, right?
Yeah.
People are good at certain things, the machines are good at other things, and it's achieving harmony between the two, as opposed to saying how many people can I rip and replace with some software. I suspect that we're going to find that's even more emphatically so as we implement generative AI.
Absolutely, agree. I think it will definitely require reskilling and upskilling. I think, as you pointed out in the intro to this show, and certainly a lot of the mundane tasks, a lot of the simple processes and operations that we've been used to doing in our daily routines at work, that will, start to go away, and will supplement, with automation, AI powered automation. And this will be a really, I think, a good thing for people in the workforce to give us more meaningful work and to move up the value chain and be more strategic and creative. I think it's good for everyone. There will be discomfort, I think, along the way as we transition to it. And a lot of the change management occurs within the enterprise. But in the end game, I think it's going to lead to a lot of innovation in our space.
So Tom, there's been a lot of people over the last, I would say even pre-ChatGPT that, were kind of, I would say, in this kind of disillusionment stage of automation, where, they felt that they hadn't gotten the ROI that they were promised or sold on, or, if they did, it was very departmental and not easily able to scale. I'm curious if you agree with that, if you've seen that, and I assume you believe that changes then with these current advancements.
I think that people are in our industry and technology, and innovation. I think people have been ready for the next wave of innovation for a while. And so let me back up, and kind of give you more of my thought process here. When the internet came to fruition, in the mid to late 90s, people didn't have any expectations, on what it could actually provide. There were some people with crystal balls who thought, eventually maybe you can, stream TV shows at home, through the internet, or you'll be able to call people through the internet. But they were so far off and Jetson-like at that time that no one had the same expectations I see that we have with generative AI right now. And I think the same with the mobile phone. In 2007, the iPhone was kind of a shock and awe, to people, that you could actually have all of these apps, and it created a whole new app ecosystem and industry. So again, the expectations weren't as lofty as they are now. But now people are so accustomed to technology being a cornerstone of their lives and depending on it so much and extracting information and communicating with people, that the expectations are sky high, in my opinion. And so I think this is still going to be like the internet, and the mobile phone is going to be, a several year process here in order to lay down the foundation and create the groundwork, the rules of engagement, the governance, and just the way it operates, in order for it to unleash that innovation to everybody, not just the consumer, through ChatGPT on calling up information or generating content, but how it's going to be used in the enterprise, how it's going to affect customers, of insurance companies, or customers of banks. How's it going to affect you when you're a retailer and you're selling to people, through omni-channel, ways of engagement with them. So I think it's going to take a little while. I think the expectations are really high right now.
Chris, you were about to say something. Lost your audio, Chris. Can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
So while he figures that out,
Yeah.
And you were one of the first ones, Tom, to refer to kind of business automation versus IT automation. Now that's kind of typical, but I think you were the first,
Yeah.
that mentioned that differentiation to me.
Well, what I saw back in, so after RPA started to take root and grow adoption from 2012-ish, say, to 2015, there was so much focus on the business process, right? You had the big four who, were claiming that, we're going to, use automation and bots to reduce a significant amount of workload, in tax processes, operations, and finance and accounting, back office types of operations. And that really started to take off. But I felt at that time there was also another revolution going on in the IT space. And it was a different flavor of automation at that time. There was a whole different category with DevOps, which we now call DevSecOps, right? And being able to bring digital delivery and zero touch to IT operations. But my thinking was that these two worlds eventually would collapse, because I figured, how could you have underlying IT systems, applications, infrastructure that are responsible for those business processes, essentially operating and working, and the output of invoices, and customer, interactions, and, call centers, and so on and so on. They all, were running based on those applications, those system of engagement, those systems of record. So as we started to look at the underlying automation at that time, we always had a keen eye on how the business KPIs could be performed and enhanced, based on automating the IT world. And now I think you are seeing, with generative AI and automated code, for example, and modernizing of applications, and how that is resulting in a lot more output in finance and accounting and procurement and supply chain. You're seeing that link and that blurring of the lines between business and IT, which has been a 7 to 10 year evolution going on right now, that I think is very good for the client, the enterprise.
Chris,
Dan, am I back now?
David,
you're back.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's what I do, Tom. When Chris gets off script too much, I just mute him.
Just delete. Next.
I like it.
Yeah. Swipe left. No, I love that you brought up previously that it's going to be discomforting, and I say all the time, if it's not uncomfortable, you're not disrupting anything, or you're not transforming anything.
That's true.
But then you also just brought up an excellent point, I think, which is we're going to have a challenge of trust, and we've always had the internet has always been trustless. So if I look at Web 3.0, one of the big things that we were pushing for the last decade or so was, how do we make the internet more trustworthy? Are you finding that with ChatGPT, you talked about that blending of sort of DevSecOps and then automation, that again, that's being emphasized. How do we trust what's coming from these systems as we deploy them?
Right, absolutely. Well, I think trust will come in a few different ways. One from a technical perspective, so if I can, wave my corporate, flag and logo, I'm proud to be an IBMer to say that, we've got Watson X and a governance platform that we've launched where I feel that we'll take the data that you fine tune for large language models and leverage that for integrated and automated workflows where there will be controls and guardrails, in place on what data is being used and not to violate privacy, or it's, taking a look at the whole three-dimensional approach to a very sound way of using that data, right? And I think there'll also be governmental regulation, just like we saw in my examples, with the internet and other inventions, right? There were protocols, there were worldwide foundations and people coming together, and you're starting to see that from meetings at the White House in Q4 last year, and organizations coming together, obviously with the with the turbulence we can say and the chaos that what occurred with ChatGPT at the end of the year. We're going to see more and more people speak up and be leaders in order to kind of lead and usher in a new way to regulate how AI and automation is used. So, I think those are two, but also I think there's a third component here with the citizen, and the person. I mean, if you look at other ways in which inventions like the internet and the mobile phone, it's people, that generally say, this is how I want to consume this safely. This is how I want my data to be used. And we still have a long way to go. But I think, the people will say, this is how I want this to happen. And the consumer will drive the bottom line, on how this is all adopted, right? And if it is prone to hallucinations and it's prone to error and it's not safe like Waze or some other ways of you navigating like your example, then people won't use it and they won't buy it, right? And then it won't make money. And if it doesn't make money, ultimately that will be the ultimate test, right?
Yeah, I don't know if you're experiencing the same thing, but more and more of my team's time and energy is focused on this question of governance, which is very unusual compared to past experiences. And I think part of the response to that is, I love the saying, why do you put brakes on a racing car? So you can go faster. And this technology is moving so quickly that the response is we need the ability to slow down a little bit and make sure that we're staying between the guardrails, as you put it.
Yeah, I like that analogy, on how you can go faster. I mean, I think this technology has been accelerating very, very quickly. In fact, you're seeing, a lot of entrepreneurs and leaders in this space asking to slow it down. I think you've heard Elon Musk and others, and depending on who you follow and who you look up to in this industry, there have been notable figures across the landscape that said we need to put the brakes on, we need to slow down so we can take it to the next step and leapfrog it within a few years from now. Because if we make mistakes now and there's a catastrophe, a catastrophic event this year with AI, it may slow down the adoption later on, right?
Tom, I'm curious as to your feeling as somebody who has, I would say come from the RPA space. You were around a lot longer than that, but at the beginning of the RPA space and now seeing some of these AI use cases, is RPA relevant in 2 years? I know that, people will say that, there's the execution part of things and then there's the thinking part of AI. But as this technology gets better, do we need RPA in the form that it's been in the last 5-6 years?
So I think that RPA has for a while been one solution, in a set of solutions that we could bring to automate workflows, right? I think we've now realized that it's not the holy grail that's going to solve all the problems that you need, for a supply chain management automated solution, right? Or for automating, the straight through processing from a call center through buying a service or a good. It's one tool that we can use in order for us to, move data from one system to another, or have a bot, perform an operation by moving from one task to another, and creating a sequence there. I think coupled with other solutions, and other technologies like old-fashioned business process management, decision management, with chatbots, with process mining, with machine learning, and now generative AI together, that's where we're going to have transformative solutions, that create innovation in the marketplace. So I think RPA will become more and more. I actually think that generative AI will exploit RPA and make it more useful. And I think that there'll actually be more bots running as a result of generative AI, because you'll unleash a lot more unstructured data with generative AI. So the more data that you have fuels the need for more automation, right? I've got a saying that I've been, talking about for a while, that, Gen AI without automation is like a brain without a body, right? And so you still need RPA as the arms and legs and the body, in order to make Gen AI work. And I think it's actually going to fuel more use of RPA.
Chris, agree, disagree?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the things we talked about over the last decade with RPA is process embrittlement, right? It was, as long as you could define it, RPA could do it, until something changed, and then RPA really wasn't designed to respond. And I think that if you can effectively merge the two, RPA and generative AI, you can kind of correct for that a little bit. You give it a little bit more flexibility, a little more, as a mechanical engineer, mechanical toughness, right? It's not going to break when things change a little bit. But that's going to require a fair amount of engineering, like some real systems thinking, to figure out that breakdown of duty, and then between the technologies, and then also harmonizing it. Is that among the things that you guys are focusing on in terms of, how do you make it all work together in a harmonious way?
Yeah, I mean, I think the orchestration
Yeah.
of automation technologies is one of the key things you're going to see in 2024. There's going to be obviously a lot of spotlight on generative AI, but the orchestration, those arms and legs, right? The way that you can actually, unleash the value of libraries of digital workers, RPA bots, and call them, upon an an as needed basis in order to perform the work that you need, is going to be essential in order to scale, automation programs this year. So I'm seeing a lot of investment and innovation occurring in the orchestration capabilities. In fact, we launched a product at IBM just recently called Watson X Orchestrate. So it's part of the Watson X portfolio of automation and AI solutions. So it will work in concert with our Watson X Studio in order to call those automations, those bots and digital workers, in order to take advantage of those large language models and put them to work, right? And put that digital workforce to work and execute those tasks and operations.
Hey, Tom, do you remember something we called enterprise application integration 25 years ago, which was all the orchestration layer for Web 1.0 and 2.0?
It's really funny you say that, because I felt like I was on an island by myself talking years ago about how I thought automation was the next chapter, the next evolution of enterprise application integration. And in fact, if you look at my resume, I started my career, 20 plus something years ago in the EAI space, right? My first job out of college was working for an XML software company in the late 90s. And we ended up getting acquired by TIPCO. And IBM, in the middle of the holidays, made an interesting acquisition. If you saw this, we acquired Software AG and the Web Methods assets from a private equity firm. And so here, I think, is a full life cycle of how we've seen RPA and AI evolve. But at its basic foundation, we need I like to look at automation as kind of the electrical wires that will bring the electricity to the homes, right? We used to call it plumbing, but I didn't think that was, as fashionable as calling it the electrical wires, because that will light up everything. And EAI will bring that integration in this next form of it, right? With API integration, and all the bells and whistles that we can put into an automated solution. So yeah, you struck a chord there with me, because that's kind of really my career and how it's evolved, with this space, which is really interesting for me.
So you're giving me PTSD by talking about Tibco and WebSphere.
Yeah.
At least you
I
didn't
didn't
say
think I would bring
BEA.
them up on this call. In fact, that's a shock to me, honestly.
You didn't
Yeah.
say BEA systems, so we're okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and if I'm
We lost your audio again, Chris. I'm sure you're saying something really, really interesting.
Lost you, Chris. So, one of the things that kind of keeps me up at night, Tom, is, I think we used to refer to outsourcing, and I can say this to you. You remember these outsourcing days? Outsource. I said this on the show a couple weeks ago. Outsourcing was kind of your mess for less, and then automation. The fear about automation was, your mess at scale. now you add the AI. It's like your mess at scale on steroids, I guess I would call it. How do you avoid that, right? How do you avoid now? You don't just have a broken process or broken system being automated. You have an intelligent system, automating it at scale.
Yeah. One of the things that I've perceived that's been helpful on the service provider, on the consultant side, is that I've seen our clients become so much smarter on this topic, right? The advancement inside the client, where a lot of the investment used to go, on the client side into ERP or CRM. I've seen entire organizations spring up, around automation and AI, right? Centers of excellences, if you want to call them. Some have different names for them, since that term has become a little generic now. But it's a wealth of talent and expertise where they have truly built their skills. And so it makes it really fun from a consultant perspective to go in and talk with people about something that I'm so passionate about, where they are driven and they are tasked with targets and investment with making this work. So I think they don't look at it as trying to scale a mess anymore. They've seen the fruits of their labor, result in true cost savings or outcomes, for their organization, whether that's, rewiring their supply chain with digital workflows and automation, especially, coming out of the pandemic a few years ago, where the whole world changed in terms of its supply chain. And that was a shift they had to make, overnight, if you were a large manufacturer or a retailer or, some other industry that, was linked to that chaos that was underway. So that's been, an interesting thing, where I don't think they look at it like that anymore. Right. I see even more and more so now, the focus will be on how do we harvest the best data for our use cases, because, I'm working with a lot of customers that have a backlog of 200 workflows, processes, or really complicated, operations that they want to automate. And the blocker that has been there for a while is we can't get the right data based on, client information, or information about our inventory, or it's unstructured and it's not clean, and it's going to take hours and years, and the cost doesn't make up for the investment. But now with large language models and generative AI, that's actually going to decrease the overhead for them to get those use cases off the ground, and the ROI will be easier to be proven, if that makes sense.
Chris?
Am I back now? I'm having a platform integration issue. Sorry about that. Yeah, you bring up some amazing points there, Tom. One of the ones that I would pose to you is that transition of our customers, organizations, kind of being better at consuming this stuff. I kind of use the analogy of whales versus piranha. IT and procurement used to be looking at buying an ERP system or a CRM system that was a bet the company investment, and you were going to be wedded to that technology for the next 3 decades, right? So you were really cautious about doing it. Hence you put all the investments there. Whereas, thanks to cloud and how we've been using those sorts of newer platforms, there's much more of this, lots of tiny little bites. So it's easier to sort of bring those technologies in and go through that portfolio of 200 automations that we're looking to build. Does that kind of resonate?
It does, yeah. And I think if I could bring up a topic we haven't talked about yet that really adds to your piranha analogy is process mining, right? That
Mm.
visibility that it provides to the organization on where the bottlenecks are occurring, where the gaps and inefficiencies are. That is enabling, more and more piranhas to eat away, at some of the areas that have been dark, that have been just not visible to leaders, within the organization. And so we're seeing some of our fastest growing projects right now leveraged with process mining. And there's, a lot of different software that you could use in the market. They're all advancing their technologies very quickly, but it's a consultative led engagement, because you really need someone that can help them enhance their finance or supply chain or procurement operations, right? And comes with that eye, says, okay, it's like almost, this analogy that we've heard, with process mining, where it's an X-ray or an MRI, but like a doctor can diagnose, a fracture or something that needs to be operated on. I like to think of our consultants, as doctors, or, the internal experts in the organization as those doctors that can leverage that data, that information. And I think generative AI, once again, will create a nirvana for process mining this year. I think as the LLMs and the data is more useful to use and fine tune for insurance, for banking, for retail, for manufacturing, it's going to create, a whole new explosion of opportunities for process mining this year.
Yeah, we always talked about how particularly social media brought about the metadata revolution. Data was valuable, metadata is even more valuable. I think generative AI is saying that metadata about the metadata is even
Yeah.
more valuable, because that's what's going to be doing the training of the systems.
Well, and even beyond that, it will automate the automation as well,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it will start creating the content and the diagnosis, the insights, right, more automatically for you, and then leapfrog, and accelerate that execution of what you need to do, right, in order to enhance that operation.
It's,
So
it's
yeah.
gonna it's gonna be like the theme song to the old Batman TV show. Meta, 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 meta.
A highly underrated show, that Batman TV show.
Yeah, maybe so. And if I may, one other point, 'cause I want to bring this up because I'm literally finishing a short paper on this right now, and the difference between digitalization, and digital transformation, particularly around PDFs. I recently read an article where they were talking about how ChatGPT was having difficulty reading PDFs and interpreting what it was reading, and it was only getting about an 80% accuracy. But for those of us who are dealing with like e-discovery, 80% accuracy is about all we've ever gotten for the better part of 30 years, ever since PDFs came out. And so we have a challenge of it took 20 years to convince regulators and attorneys that it was okay to give up paper documents and use a PDF instead, because it was decontextualized and immutable. You couldn't change it. But by digitizing all of my corporate documents, I made it so that nobody could read them and make sense of them anymore. And so now we have the digitalization challenge of how do I take all these PDFs that are the records of my how my business operated, and recontextualize them and reanimate them so that I can then use them for analytics. Any thoughts on how that's going to be one of the challenges that we face going? And after I digitalize, then I can start doing transformation because I have something to learn from.
Yeah, I think digitizing as many documents, assets within the enterprise as a first wave, prior to building automations and leveraging data, is absolutely the way to go. From my experience, a lot of customers want to automate very quickly, and they don't have the time or investment to digitize everything that they would hope for. And so they try to get to a point where everything's structured neatly in a PDF, or in some sort of system of record. But one tool that I neglected to mention when I was talking about all the ingredients of automation is intelligent document processing, right? And I think IDP, in a lot of our use cases, especially more of the complicated workflows that we're automating for claims management or invoicing, leverage IDP. What I wish I had more of a crystal ball is how generative AI and IDP will start to work together, because there's some difference of thought out there on whether LLMs will cannibalize IDP, right? Data extraction, intelligent document processing, OCR, whatever you want to call it, right? Whereas I think, there still will be, room for two, in my opinion. I mean, I think that you're still going to have a lot of unstructured data out there, a lot of paper that will take images, and you'll need to have very sophisticated ways of reading handwriting or unstructured docs that may not be legible enough, for the speed and accuracy that you want. And IDP tools are getting better and better, on the market. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question directly, I mean, in order to make automation fully valuable, you need to digitize as much as possible before you enter, and usher in that automation into the market.
Yeah. And then getting it back from that format back to an analyzable and consumable from an analytics perspective challenge is
Right.
It's like a holy grail, I think, for our whole industry as we try to figure that piece out.
Right. That's true. Yes.
Tom, you've spent a lot of time on the vendor side, but you've also been an analyst. I think of you as someone who doesn't always just peddle the vendor pitch and can be a little bit of a BS detector. I'm curious as to whether what you're seeing now, as far as there's different reports out there as to the maturity level of organizations that are trying to pair automation and AI. And certainly vendors that have capabilities around automation. And are there any existing use cases where, clients of yours or clients that you're aware of have seen the benefits of, combining these technologies? And if so, how?
Yeah, there are a number. The one that, I like to talk to, and you hear from IBM quite a bit because it's a great story, is the Department of Veterans Affairs. We work with the government, quite a bit. And this agency had a backlog of inquiries from vets, regarding health claims, dental claims, eye insurance, needs. And bottom line is, it was very slow for the agency to respond to the veterans, right? And these are people that put their life on the line, for our country in the U.S. And to have, a 3-month lag period before they can get, response on a claim, and whether or not it would be paid for, or what doctor to go to and get their appointment set up. It just, it's not satisfactory, let's say, right? And so we, went and worked with the VA in order to shorten that 3-month period down to 1 day. And the way we did that was leveraging automation and AI. And we used a lot of the ingredients that we talked about there, with intelligent document processing and, taking unstructured data, PDFs, and reading those documents, emails, snail mail, digitizing it, like we were talking about, Chris, and then leveraging RPA, BPM, decision management, and chatbots, right? So traditional AI, I think, as we're calling it now, with, chatbots and ways for, a digital assistant to work with a customer, is something that we put in place there. And so this was, a really big transformative play with the VA. And as a result, you're seeing a lot of other projects underway across that department, as well as others, in the government, in order to speed up claims management or customer service. And I think generative AI is going to play a significant role, with customer service this year, as we see more and more use cases underway. I'm also seeing, a lot of really interesting use cases around the combination of process mining and generative AI, like we were talking about, where we had an untapped data repository of invoices where we can learn from past errors and mistakes and fine tune, the data set that we collect, regarding those invoices, and proactively predict, with process mining, where are those errors going to occur with mismatched invoice numbers, and helping clients, get cash flow, improved within the organization. As interest rates have risen over the last several years, it's been more and more of a need to improve the cash flow of an organization. And so being one step ahead with predictability and leveraging data in order to automate those invoices has been really helpful for our customers. Those are a couple of things that I'm seeing right now, and I look forward to talking to you guys more throughout the year, on other use cases we're seeing with AI and RPA.
You're the second person, Chris, you're not the only one saying that the government's actually using AI and trying to transform things finally.
No, I think one of the critical things you mentioned, Tom, is this the need to increase your metabolic rate of your business and how you consume data and generate useful outcomes from it. And GAI, I think, is going to be a key piece of doing that. It's just doing everything at a higher rate and a faster pace because the world's moving that much faster now.
Yeah, it truly is. And, the adoption of technology is at a pace that, I haven't quite seen in a while. And it really is amazing to see the, feverish pitch there is and the expectations with automation, plus AI. And I think the combination of the two is going to, prove to be very valuable within the organizations. But I don't think standalone, they're going to, really deliver without each other. And that's something that I'm going to harp on this year, is that automation and AI together, really will unleash that nirvana, as I said before, for our industries.
Yeah, I know we're talking nostalgically about using ChatGPT, and it just had its first birthday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Tom, really appreciate your time. Definitely taking up on having you back in maybe a couple months. Let us know what else you guys are doing, but really appreciate you joining the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This has been great. Really enjoyed talking with all of you and the audience out there. So have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Tom.
So Chris, I can't believe you guys don't know each other, by the way. I mean, it's like I said, it's like a group of people that I think like pioneers early on, people in that room, and the power of the network, right? Good to get you guys both on the same line. And I love a couple terms I think we should write some papers or content on. I love your expression about the metabolic rate of the organization. That's a great analogy. And I think Tom using that oxymoron term of traditional AI, like that's like it's wild that we're referring to AI that way. But you're right. I mean, it's only ChatGPT is a year old essentially.
It's the old style nuclear fusion.
Right. Great. Well, good conversation. Thanks everybody for joining. If we can help you out, please reach out to my team. We're here to help you. We offer free coaching sessions and industry use case briefings on a variety of topics around digital transformation, automation, and AI. So go to IRPAAI.com to schedule that. And in the meantime, we'll be back in 2 weeks. We're on every other Wednesday, live at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. Chris, have a great week.
Yeah, likewise. Take care.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.
Cheers.